When he closed the car door and said, "I'll come back soon, Amma," I believed him. Even when his eyes refused to meet mine, even when his wife sat beside him, pretending to scroll through her phone as if she couldn't hear the tremor in my voice, I still believed him. Because a mother always believes her child. The dust from the tires still clung to the air long after the sound of the engine faded down the dirt road. And I stood there, staring at the spot where my son's car had disappeared, holding the small cloth bag that carried all my belongings. A few saris, my medicine, and an old framed photo of us taken 25 years ago when he was still my little boy. That day, the world went silent around me. Only the crows and the wind kept me company. The house behind me was more ruin than shelter, walls covered in moss, windows hanging loose, roof tiles cracked and ready to fall with the next rain. My son had said, "Just stay here for a few weeks, Amma. The city is too small right now and you'll have peace here. I'll take you back once things settle." But I knew what he meant. He meant you're a burden now. He meant my wife doesn't want you around. He meant it's easier if you stay forgotten. I stood in front of that decaying house, the evening sun sinking behind the hills, and wondered how love could change its shape so cruelly. He wasn't always like this. My Aaron was a gentle boy once, shy, kind, full of laughter. I raised him alone after his father died in an accident when Aaron was 10. We had nothing, but we had each other. I worked in the fields by day and stitched clothes at night so he could study. I remember the day he came running home with his first exam results, waving the paper in my face. "First rank, Amma," he'd shouted, his smile wide enough to light the whole street. That smile was my world. I promised myself that no matter how hard life got, I would make sure he never felt small. When he got a scholarship for engineering, I sold my gold chain, the last thing his father gave me, to buy him a suitcase and a pair of shoes. I cried that night, not out of sadness, but pride. My boy was going to be something. Years passed. He moved to the city, got a good job, and started sending money. He'd call me every evening. "Amma, have you eaten? Take your medicine." I lived for those calls. When he came home for festivals, he'd bring sweets, clothes, and stories about tall buildings and bright lights. He told me, "One day, Amma, I'll take you to the city to live with me." And he did, at first. For a while, I lived with him and his wife, Mira. She was beautiful, educated, polite. But her politeness had a distance to it, like she was always performing kindness, never feeling it. I tried to love her as my own. I cooked for them, helped around the house, took care of their baby when he was born. But soon, I noticed the small things. The way Mira sighed whenever I spoke to Aaron too long. The way she moved my things out of the living room, little by little. The way she smiled when she said, "Amma, you should rest more." But what she really meant was, "Stay out of our way." Aaron changed too. He became quieter, distant. The boy who once shared everything with me now spoke in short sentences, his eyes avoiding mine. "Work," he said. "Always work." I could feel Mira's influence wrapping around him like vines around a tree, slow, suffocating, invisible. I didn't complain. I told myself he's happy. That's all that matters. Until the day he said we were going on a drive. It was a sunny morning. Mira packed a small bag for me, saying, "Just for a few days, Amma, you'll like the fresh air." Aaron didn't say much. He just smiled faintly and helped me into the car. I remember watching the city fade into fields, then forests, then dusty roads. When we stopped in front of that old house, I was confused. "Whose house is this?" I asked. "An old family place," he lied. "You'll be safe here. The neighbors are kind." I looked around. There was nothing, just wilderness, silence, and a single narrow road stretching into nowhere. "Aaron, I don't understand," I said, my voice trembling. "Why here?" He didn't answer right away. He looked at Mira. She turned away. Then he said, "It's just for a while, Amma. I need to sort some things out. The apartment's small. You'll be more comfortable here." Comfortable. That word burned in my ears. He left after that. He hugged me, but it was the kind of hug people give when they've already decided to let go. His arms were stiff, his eyes watery but distant. When the car vanished, I felt something inside me collapse. The silence around me was too heavy. The house creaked as the wind brushed through its broken windows. I walked inside and saw cobwebs hanging like curtains, dust covering every corner, and a smell of decay that clung to my skin. I sat on the broken cot and cried for hours. Not loudly, just the quiet kind of crying that leaves you empty. Days turned into weeks. The mornings were the hardest. I'd wake up before dawn, expecting to hear the baby's laughter, Mira's voice, or the city noise. Instead, I heard only roosters, the rustle of leaves, and the distant bark of stray dogs. I started talking to myself about the past, about how things used to be, about how love can fade but memories never do. The villagers were simple people. Some pitied me, others just stared. They'd whisper things when I passed by with my basket of vegetables. Poor thing, her son left her here. I didn't care what they said. Words couldn't hurt me anymore. The pain of betrayal had already carved itself too deep. One evening, as I sat outside watching the sun bleed into the hills, I noticed a woman standing by the fence of the next house, if you could call it that. Her house was smaller, but strangely well kept compared to mine. She was sweeping the yard slowly, her movements calm, deliberate. She looked up and smiled. A faint, tired smile, the kind people share when they've both known pain. "New here?" she asked softly. I nodded. "My son left me here for some time," I said, trying to hide the crack in my voice. She didn't ask more, she just said, "Then maybe we'll keep each other company." Her name was Lakshmi. Over the next few days, she'd visit sometimes, with a bowl of rice, or just to sit quietly beside me. She never pried, never asked why I looked at the road every morning as if waiting for someone. She'd talk about small things, the rain, the mango trees, the way the village used to be livelier once. There was something comforting about her presence. Her eyes carried the same loneliness I felt. When she spoke about her past, her voice trembled slightly, though she tried to hide it. She said she used to live in the city too, with her son and his family. "But things changed," she murmured. "They always do." We didn't need many words. Pain recognizes pain. At night, I'd lie awake on the cot, the sound of crickets echoing through the cracks in the roof, and think of Aaron. Did he ever think of me? Was he sleeping peacefully in his air-conditioned room while I counted raindrops dripping into a rusted bucket? Did he tell his friends where his mother was? Sometimes I imagined him driving back to get me, headlights flashing on the dirt road, his voice calling, "Amma." I'd rush out, smiling through tears, and forgive him instantly. Because that's what mothers do. But the road remained dark. A month passed. No phone call, no letter, no visit. I stopped waiting. I began to accept the stillness, to find strange comfort in the simplicity of village life. The smell of wet soil after rain, the sound of children laughing in the distance, the taste of rice cooked over firewood. But there was always a hollow inside me that refused to heal. One morning, I sat outside sipping tea when Lakshmi came over with a small parcel wrapped in cloth. "I made these for you," she said. "Sweet rice balls. My son used to love them." Her words caught me off guard. I looked at her face, the way her eyes glistened when she mentioned her son, the tiny tremor in her lips. "Used to?" I asked gently. She looked away. "He doesn't visit anymore. Life keeps people busy." I wanted to tell her that life doesn't keep people busy. Love just stops mattering to them. But I stayed quiet. That night, as I sat outside under the full moon, I thought about how two mothers, abandoned by their sons, could sit side by side and still find the strength to smile. The days stretched endlessly. I tried to rebuild small parts of the house, patched a hole in the roof, cleaned the porch, planted marigolds by the gate. It gave me purpose, a reason to wake up. But every time I saw the photo of Aaron and me, him as a boy, smiling with missing teeth, me holding his hand proudly, I felt the ache return. I whispered to the photo, "You promised, my son. You said you'd never leave me alone." The silence answered back. Sometimes I hated him. Other times, I missed him so much that it hurt to breathe. I didn't know it then, but the woman next door, the quiet Lakshmi with kind eyes, carried secrets that would one day shatter the fragile peace I had built. And my son would return, not with flowers or apologies, but with truths that would tear open every wound I had tried to close. But that night, I didn't know any of that. That night, I just sat by the doorway of the ruined house, listening to the wind whisper through the trees, and prayed that maybe, just maybe, he'd remember the sound of my voice when he was a boy. Days turned into a rhythm of silence and small survival. Morning sunlight spilled through the broken roof like golden dust, and I would watch the beams tremble with every gust of wind. The house creaked and moaned like an old body in pain, and I found comfort in that. At least it wasn't silent. Silence is the worst kind of company. It doesn't speak, it only reminds you of everything that's missing. I woke early each morning out of habit. I'd sweep the small porch, boil water on the stove, and make weak tea that never quite tasted right. In the distance, I could hear roosters, sometimes the laughter of children running barefoot down the dirt road, their lives still untouched by disappointment. The village was small, barely a cluster of houses scattered across dry fields. There was one tea stall near the banyan tree, a temple whose bell rang twice a day, and a dusty path that connected everything like a fragile thread. I began to recognize faces. The old man who sold milk, the woman who carried firewood on her head, the group of young boys who always stared at me with curiosity but never dared to speak. People whispered about me, I could tell. They'd lower their voices when I walked by, as if pity were something to hide. "That's the city woman who was left here," I once overheard. "Her son dropped her off and never came back." The words hurt, but I didn't let them show. I'd just walk away, clutching the end of my sari tighter around my shoulders, pretending the wind had caught in my throat. I had started to build a kind of fragile peace, fragile enough to shatter with a single memory. Every night before I closed my eyes, I saw Aaron as a child again, his small hands, his smile, his voice saying, "Amma, don't ever cry, okay? I'll always be with you." It's strange how memories can both comfort and kill you. Lakshmi became the only face I looked forward to seeing. She'd come by almost every afternoon, bringing something small, a few guavas from her tree, a handful of lentils, or just a smile. She was older than me by a few years, her hair streaked with silver, her hands rough from years of work. But there was grace in the way she moved, as if sorrow had taught her gentleness. We'd sit under the shade of the neem tree between our houses, sipping tea from steel cups, talking about small things, weather, festivals, food. Sometimes we'd talk about our sons, though never too much. We both knew that topic was a wound neither of us could afford to reopen fully. One afternoon, while she was cutting vegetables, she said quietly, "I used to believe pain made people better, but I think it just makes them quieter." I didn't answer immediately. I was watching the way her knife moved, slow, steady, deliberate. "Maybe pain teaches us how to live with less," I said. "Less love, less expectation, less noise." She looked at me and smiled faintly. "Yes," she said, "less noise." That was how it was between us, two women who had nothing left except the echo of what once was. We didn't need explanations or advice, just presence. Sometimes, at night, I'd hear her humming softly old songs that reminded me of my own youth. Through the cracked wall that separated our yards, her voice would drift into my room, blending with the chirp of crickets. It felt like a lullaby sent by fate to keep me alive another day. One night I couldn't sleep. The rain had started suddenly, fierce, and unkind. Water leaked through the roof and dripped into a pot I'd placed under the hole. The sound was rhythmic, plink, 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 steady and maddening. I wrapped a shawl around me and stood at the window, watching the storm devour the fields. I saw Lakshmi then. She was outside, running to pull her clothes off the line. Even in the rain, she moved with a strange determination. I rushed out with an umbrella, though it was barely holding together. "Lakshmi," I called. "Let it be, you'll catch a cold." She laughed, her gray hair sticking to her forehead. "If I don't save them, I'll have nothing dry to wear tomorrow," she shouted back. Her laugh, that brief, reckless sound, cut through the night's gloom. I don't know why, but I felt something warm inside me at that moment. Maybe it was just the simple joy of seeing someone who still fought against life, instead of surrendering to it like I had. After we went inside, soaked to the bone, she lit a small fire and made tea. We sat close to the flame, steam rising between us. "You remind me of my younger self," she said softly, "always worrying about others." I smiled sadly. "And you remind me of the woman I used to be," I replied. "Strong, unbreakable, until I broke." She looked at me for a long moment, her eyes glistening in the firelight. "We all break," she said finally, "but some of us learn how to keep living with the cracks." The next morning, the rain had softened into mist. The fields glowed faintly under the pale sun. Everything smelled of wet earth and forgotten dreams. I went outside to hang my clothes, and I saw something lying near the gate, a small envelope. My heart leapt. For a moment, I thought it was from Aaron. My hands trembled as I picked it up, but it wasn't addressed to me. It was old, yellowed, and the ink had faded. It had Lakshmi's name on it. When she came over later, I handed it to her. "This was near my gate," I said. "Maybe the wind brought it here." Her face changed as she saw it, a flash of recognition, then pain. She took it silently and held it to her chest for a few seconds. "Thank you," she said quietly. "It's from long ago." I wanted to ask who it was from, but something in her expression stopped me. Later that evening, I saw her sitting alone outside her house, holding the letter, tears slipping down her face in silence. I didn't go to her. Sometimes, even comfort can feel like intrusion. Weeks passed like that, quiet days, heavy nights. My health began to weaken. Some mornings, my legs felt too heavy to move. My hands trembled when I tried to hold a spoon. I didn't tell Lakshmi. I didn't want to be another burden on someone who already carried too many of her own. One evening, while we were drinking tea, I asked her, "Do you ever think your son will come back?" She smiled faintly, but her eyes clouded. "Every mother thinks that," she said. "We wait even when we know the road is empty. Hope is a stubborn thing." I looked down at my hands, at the deep lines carved by time and work. "Sometimes I wish I could stop loving him," I whispered. "It would hurt less." She reached out and touched my hand gently. "Love doesn't end," she said. "It just changes shape. Sometimes it becomes memory. Sometimes it becomes prayer." Her words stayed with me. That night, I prayed for Aaron, not for him to come back, but for him to remember who I was before life taught him to forget. As the monsoon ended, the village turned green again. Flowers bloomed by the roadside, and the air smelled of mango leaves. Children played in puddles, their laughter echoing through the fields. Life moved on for everyone except me. One afternoon, as I was washing clothes by the well, I heard voices near the temple. Some villagers were talking about a family from the city moving into the old house near the banyan tree. "A rich man and his wife," someone said. "They've fallen on hard times." The words hit me strangely, a family from the city. I wondered if Aaron was still in the city, living the life he once promised me. I wondered if he passed by old women on the street and thought of me. That night, as I sat outside, I told Lakshmi about it. "A family from the city is moving here," I said. She looked thoughtful. "The city brings people together, then scatters them," she murmured. "Sometimes it sends them back to the places they ran from." I didn't understand what she meant then, but her tone, low, resigned, carried something prophetic. There was one night I will never forget. The air was heavy with the scent of jasmine. I couldn't sleep, so I stepped outside. The moon was full, lighting the fields in silver. And there she was, Lakshmi, sitting on her porch, staring at the same moon. I walked over quietly. "Can't sleep either?" I asked. She shook her head. "I was thinking about my son," she said softly. "His name is Raghav. He used to call me every Sunday. Then one day he stopped." I sat beside her. "Why?" She was silent for a long time. Then she said, "Because he married someone I couldn't accept. I said things I shouldn't have said. He told me I'd regret it one day. He was right." I felt a chill run through me, though I didn't know why. "What was her name?" I asked without thinking. She looked up at the moon and whispered, "Mira." The world froze around me. The air, the trees, even the sound of crickets, everything seemed to vanish into silence. I couldn't breathe. My heart pounded in my chest. "Mira, my son's wife." I looked at Lakshmi, but she was lost in her memories, unaware of the storm she had just stirred inside me. I wanted to speak, to ask questions, to scream, to cry, but no words came out. My throat felt tight, as if grief itself was strangling me. I stood up slowly, murmuring, I need to go." She nodded gently, "Good night." I walked back to my house, my legs trembling, my mind spinning with disbelief. Could it be the same Mira? The same woman who had turned my son against me? The same woman whose polite smile had hidden so much cruelty? And if it was, then fate had played a cruel joke. Two mothers, both abandoned by their sons, bound together by a woman who had destroyed both of our lives. I sat on my cot until dawn, staring at the walls that seemed to breathe with my pain. The photo of Aaron lay on the table beside me, the glass cracked right through his smiling face. I touched it gently and whispered, "What have you done, my son?" The silence had no answer, only the wind outside, howling softly like it was mourning with me. I didn't sleep that night. The word Mira echoed inside my mind like a curse. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, that perfect smile, that practiced politeness, that cold distance that grew between us like a wall. And now, to know that the woman who destroyed my family was the daughter of the only person who had shown me kindness here, it felt like the cruelest twist of fate. When dawn came, I sat on the porch, eyes red, body numb. The morning air was sharp and wet. A faint mist wrapped itself around the fields. I could hear Lakshmi humming in her kitchen, unaware of the storm that now raged in my heart. For hours, I tried to convince myself it was just coincidence. Mira wasn't such a rare name. There could be thousands of Miras in the city, but somewhere deep inside, I already knew. The way Lakshmi had said that name, her hesitation, her regret, it matched too perfectly. That day, I didn't go to see her. I couldn't. I kept to myself, pretending to clean the courtyard, but mostly just sitting and staring at the road where my son had once left me. Every sound felt distant, the calls of the vendors, the laughter of children, the rustling of leaves. My heart was too full of noise from the past. As evening fell, I saw Lakshmi walking toward my house with her usual calm smile. I tried to act normal, though my hands were trembling. "You didn't come today," she said softly, carrying a small steel bowl. "I thought maybe you weren't feeling well." "I'm fine," I lied. She nodded. "Then eat this. It's lentil curry. I made too much." Her kindness hurt more than anger ever could. I wanted to tell her everything, that her daughter had taken my son away from me, that her family had torn mine apart, but I couldn't. She looked at me with such genuine affection that my voice died before it could escape. "Thank you," I whispered instead, taking the bowl. She sat with me on the porch. The sky had turned orange, the kind of color that makes everything look nostalgic. For a long time, we sat in silence, listening to the cicadas begin their nightly song. Then she said, "I'm sorry if I said something that upset you last night." My heart skipped a beat. "No," I said quickly, "not at all." She looked at me for a long moment, as if she didn't quite believe me, then sighed. "That name, Mira, it still hurts to say it." I looked down. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Lakshmi's eyes clouded over, her voice trembling. "Because she left me," she said. "She chose a life where I didn't exist. She used to be such a sweet girl, full of dreams, always humming songs. I didn't want her to marry that man. He was older, too quiet, too serious. But she said she loved him. I told her love wasn't enough to feed you. She said I didn't understand love. Maybe I didn't." She paused, her fingers tightening around her cup. "They moved to the city. After that, she stopped calling. Once a year, maybe. Then nothing. The last time I heard from her, she told me she had a son, my grandson, and that she was happy. But her voice, it sounded like someone else. Cold, distant. I think she married into money, and maybe that changed her." My breath caught, my chest ached. My son, her grandson. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her, that man, that older man, was my son, Aaron, the one who left me to rot here. But I didn't. I just sat there, gripping the edge of my sorry, trying to keep my composure while my heart shattered silently inside me. That night, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I cried like a child, ugly, gasping sobs that filled the empty room. The photo of Aaron on the table blurred through my tears. "How could you do this, my son?" I whispered. "How could you break me, then send me to her?" The irony was too cruel. My son had abandoned me in the very place where his wife's mother lived, the woman whose daughter had poisoned his heart against me. Was it a coincidence or fate's twisted joke? I didn't know. But I did know one thing: neither of us, Lakshmi or I, had one. Both our children had destroyed us in different ways, and now we were two broken pieces unknowingly placed beside each other. I didn't sleep that night either. The house felt colder than ever. The wind moaned through the cracks, and every sound reminded me of the life I had lost. Over the next few days, I tried to keep my distance. Lakshmi noticed but didn't question me. She continued visiting, talking softly about simple things. Maybe she sensed something had changed between us, but she respected my silence. Once, when she saw me struggling to carry water from the well, she came running. "Let me help," she said, taking the bucket from my hands. I tried to protest. "No, I can manage." "You'll hurt your back," she said gently. We're not young anymore, remember? I smiled weakly. Yes, age teaches us humility, doesn't it? She chuckled softly. It teaches us that strength doesn't always mean fighting. Sometimes it means accepting help. Her words touched something deep inside me. I realized she wasn't my enemy. She was as much a victim of life's cruelty as I was. Maybe our children weren't evil, just lost in their own selfish worlds. That night, I sat by the small window and wrote a letter to Aaron. I didn't know where to send it, but writing helped. My dear son, the nights are long here. The silence is cruel. I still wake up thinking you'll walk through the door. But I've learned something. Love isn't about who stays, it's about who remembers. I hope you remember me, even if only in passing. And I hope the woman you chose, the one who took you from me, at least keeps you warm when I no longer can. I folded the letter and kept it under my pillow, where it stayed for weeks, yellowing with time. As the days grew shorter, Lakshmi's health began to weaken. She coughed often and moved slower than before. One morning, I went to her house and found her sitting by the window, staring at a small photograph in her lap. She was beautiful, was she? She said when she noticed me. It was a photo of Mira, younger, smiling, her eyes bright with youth. She looks happy, I said softly, forcing the words through the lump in my throat. She was, Lakshmi replied, her eyes glistening. Before the world taught her how to be cold, I don't blame her anymore. I think she became like me, stubborn, proud. Maybe that's why we couldn't stay under one roof. I sat beside her quietly, my heart torn between pain and pity. You know, she said suddenly, sometimes I dream she'll come back. She'll stand there holding my hands and say she's sorry. But when I wake up, the house is empty. Her voice broke on that last word. Without thinking, I reached for her hand. If she ever comes back, I said softly, she'll find you waiting, and she'll know she was loved. She smiled faintly, tears gathering in her eyes. You talk like a mother, she said, like someone who knows what it's like to lose a child. I looked away quickly, afraid she'd see the truth in my eyes. Maybe I do, I whispered. That evening, a strange thing happened. A man came to the village on a motorbike delivering letters. No one ever sent me mail, but when he called my name, my heart stopped. He handed me a white envelope, clean, official-looking. I tore it open with shaking hands. It wasn't from Aaron. It was from the hospital in the city. Inside was a short note addressed to Mrs. Lakshmi Devi. I froze. The paper must have been mixed up by mistake. It had come to my address. I was about to take it to her when my eyes caught a few words in bold letters. Emergency admission, patient, Mira Raghav. My blood ran cold. I read it again and again. It said Mira had been admitted to the city hospital after a car accident. Her condition was critical. I stood there for a long time, trembling. I didn't know whether to give it to Lakshmi or to hide it. What if it broke her completely? What if it was her punishment or mine? But then I thought of my own son, of what I'd give to know he was alive, even if broken. I walked to her house, letter in hand. She was sitting on her porch, sewing an old pillow cover. Lakshmi, I said softly, my voice shaking, there's something you should see. She looked at the envelope, her eyes narrowing. What is it? It came by mistake, but it's for you. She opened it slowly. As she read, her hands began to tremble. The color drained from her face. Mira, she whispered, my Mira. Tears fell onto the paper. I sat beside her, speechless. She looked at me with such raw pain that I couldn't hold back my own tears. She's in the hospital, she said, her voice breaking. I need to go, I need to see her. You should, I said softly. She looked at me helplessly. But I don't have anyone there anymore. No address, no money. How will I find her? I didn't think, I just said it. I'll come with you. The words surprised even me. But something inside me, something beyond anger and betrayal, wanted her to find her daughter. Maybe if she could find hers, my son would find me too. She stared at me, her lips trembling. You do that for me. I nodded. We've both waited too long for our children. Maybe it's time to stop waiting. That night, we packed what little we had, a few clothes, some food, and the letter. The moon was half hidden behind clouds, and the air smelled of rain again. Before leaving, I looked back at the ruined house, the place where my son had left me, the place where I'd learned what loneliness truly meant. I whispered, I'm not waiting anymore, Aaron. Lakshmi touched my shoulder gently. Ready. I nodded. As we walked down the empty road toward the bus stop, two broken mothers bound by pain and fate, I felt something stir inside me, fear, yes, but also something else. A strange, trembling hope. I didn't know that the journey ahead would reveal not just Lakshmi's daughter's truth, but also my son, and that the two were tangled far deeper than I ever imagined. The road stretched before us, endless and dark, and I had no idea that we were walking straight into the heart of the storm. The bus roared down the dirt road before dawn, its headlights slicing through the mist. Lakshmi and I sat side by side near the window, clutching our bags, our hands trembling with cold and fear. Neither of us spoke much. The air between us was heavy with the unspoken weight of our pasts. The bus smelled of damp clothes and diesel. Children cried in the back. Somewhere, a man snored loudly, his head lolling against the window. I stared outside at the dark fields rushing past, the same fields that had watched me live my quiet exile. Lakshmi was praying softly under her breath, her lips moving silently. Every few minutes, she'd glance at the letter, folded neatly in her lap, as if afraid it might vanish. "She'll be fine," I whispered, trying to reassure her or maybe myself. She nodded but didn't look at me. "I just want to see her once," she said, "even if she doesn't want to see me." I felt a pang in my chest, even if she doesn't want to see me. I knew that pain too well. The city was already awake when we arrived, noisy, impatient, indifferent. The air was thick with smoke, the streets crowded with people rushing nowhere. I hadn't been here since Aaron left me in the village. Every building, every sound brought back memories I wished I'd buried. We took a rickshaw to the hospital. Lakshmi held onto the side with one hand and the letter with the other. The driver's radio crackled with a film song about love and loss. I couldn't tell whether it comforted or mocked us. When the hospital finally appeared, tall, gray, sterile, my stomach twisted. The smell of disinfectant and medicine hit me as soon as we entered. It was the smell of endings. At the reception, Lakshmi handed the letter to the nurse. "My daughter, Meera Raghav," she said, her voice trembling. "She was admitted here." The nurse checked the computer. "She's in Ward 3B, room 14. You can go." Lakshmi's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. We walked down the long corridor. The floor was polished, but the light flickered, and the air felt too still. Every step echoed like a heartbeat. I felt the weight of something I couldn't name pressing down on my chest. At the door to room 14, Lakshmi stopped. Her hands were shaking. "Go on," I said gently. "She's waiting." She nodded weakly and pushed the door open. The room was dim, filled with the steady beeping of machines. Meera lay on the bed, pale, fragile, her face half covered by an oxygen mask. Wires snaked across her body, tubes connected her to life she was barely holding onto. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Seeing her like that, the woman who had once smiled at me as if she pitied me, the woman who had taken my son away, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like tragedy. Lakshmi gasped and ran to her side. "Meera," she cried, clutching her hand. "It's Amma, I'm here." Meera's eyelids fluttered weakly. She looked at her mother, confusion flickering across her face. "Amma," she whispered through the mask, her voice barely a breath. "Yes, my child," Lakshmi sobbed. "It's me. I came to see you." I stood at the door, frozen, my nails digging into my palms. I didn't know whether to go inside or turn and run. But then I heard another voice, deep, cracked, achingly familiar. "Amma." I turned. My heart stopped. There he was, my son, Aaron, standing at the doorway of the room, his hair unkempt, his face drawn and pale. His eyes widened when he saw me. For a moment, we just stared at each other, both of us too stunned to speak. "Amma," he whispered again, his voice breaking. "What are you doing here?" The words cut through me. He didn't ask how I was or why I'd come, only what I was doing here, as if I didn't belong, not even in this place of pain. "I came with her," I said softly, nodding toward Lakshmi. "She's your wife's mother." He looked at Lakshmi, then at Meera, and I saw realization dawn in his eyes. The cruel, impossible web fate had woven around us. "God," he murmured, his hand covering his mouth. Lakshmi turned to him slowly. "You," she whispered, "you're Meera's husband." Aaron lowered his head. "Yes," he said quietly. For a few moments, no one spoke. Only the machines hummed, indifferent to the chaos inside the room. Then Lakshmi whispered, "You're the one who took her away from me." Aaron flinched. "And you," I said, my voice trembling, "are the one who took him away from me." The silence that followed was unbearable. Aaron stepped closer to me, tears welling in his eyes. "Amma, I didn't know you were here. You didn't know because you never cared to ask," I interrupted. My voice was shaking, but I couldn't stop. "You left me in that broken house like an old piece of furniture. You said you'd come back, you never did." He looked away, shame flooding his face. I thought you'd be happier there," he said weakly. "Mira said the city was too much for you, that you wanted peace." "Peace?" I almost laughed. "You call that peace? Living alone with ghosts and rainwater dripping through the roof." Lakshmi was crying quietly now, her hands pressed to her mouth. Aaron took a deep breath. "I was wrong," he whispered. "Everything fell apart after that. Mira and I fought every day. She blamed me for everything, for not being ambitious enough, for being too attached to the past. When I lost my job, she said she couldn't live like that anymore." He paused, his voice breaking. "She left. I tried to find her. And now." He looked at the hospital bed, where Mira lay between life and death. Now he had found her, but too late. Lakshmi sank to her knees beside the bed, clutching Mira's hand. "You both destroyed yourselves," she whispered. "And us." The doctor came in soon after, his face grim. "She's stable for now," he said, "but her injuries are severe. You should prepare yourselves." When he left, the room was filled with sobbing. Lakshmi's soft, broken cries, Aaron's silent tears, and my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. For hours, we sat there, 4 lives tangled in regret, bound by mistakes. Sometimes Mira stirred, murmuring names we couldn't hear. Sometimes Lakshmi would touch her forehead and whisper, "I forgive you, my child." I wanted to forgive too, but forgiveness is not a switch. It's a slow, bleeding surrender. As the sun set outside the window, the nurse came in to say visiting hours were over. Lakshmi refused to leave. "I'll stay here," she said. "Please." The nurse hesitated, then nodded. "One person can stay." I looked at Aaron. "You stay," I said. "She needs you now." He shook his head. "No, Amma, you rest. I'll find us a place to stay tonight." "I don't need rest," I said, my voice trembling. "I need truth." He looked at me, exhausted. "The truth is, I was a fool, Amma. I let love blind me. I thought I could build a new life, but all I did was destroy the one I already had." "And now," I asked softly, "what will you do now?" He didn't answer. That night I stayed with Lakshmi in the hospital corridor. The smell of antiseptic clung to everything. Every few minutes, a stretcher would roll past, someone crying, someone praying. Life and death shared the same hallway here. Lakshmi sat beside me, her head bowed. "I used to pray every night that Mira would be punished," she said quietly. "Now I just want her to open her eyes." I nodded slowly. "I used to pray my son would understand my pain," I said. "Now I just want him to live long enough to forgive himself." We looked at each other, 2 mothers who had lost everything but pain, and for the first time there was no wall between us, just shared grief. In the morning, Mira woke up. It was brief, just a few seconds of clarity. She looked around weakly, her gaze landing on her mother first. "Amma," she whispered. Lakshmi leaned close, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, my love, I'm here." Then Mira's eyes shifted and found me. For a moment, confusion clouded her face. Then recognition, her lips trembled. "Amma," she whispered again, but this time it was to me. I froze. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely audible, "for everything." I couldn't move. Tears spilled down my face before I realized I was crying. I reached for her hand and held it gently. "It's all right," I whispered. "Rest now." She smiled faintly, a smile I had never seen before. Real, fragile, human. Then she turned to Lakshmi. "I love you," she whispered, "both of you." Her eyes fluttered closed. The machines began to beep wildly. Nurses rushed in. They pushed us back, shouting orders. And just like that, it was over. The next hour was a blur of noise and silence. The doctor came out, his face solemn. Lakshmi collapsed to the floor, screaming her daughter's name. Aaron stood still, tears pouring down his face, staring at the closed door. I held Lakshmi in my arms as she sobbed uncontrollably. "She forgave us," I whispered, my own heart breaking. She found peace. But inside, I felt the world crumble again, not just for her, but for all of us. Mira's death wasn't just the end of a life. It was the mirror that forced us to see what we'd become. Aaron came to me hours later, his eyes red, his voice hollow. "Amma," he said, falling to his knees, "I'm sorry for everything, for leaving you, for not listening, for wasting all these years." I placed my hand on his head. "You've suffered enough," I said softly. "Forgiveness doesn't erase pain, it just makes it bearable." He broke down completely, sobbing like a child, the same way he used to when he scraped his knee as a boy. I held him, my tears falling into his hair. In that sterile hospital corridor, surrounded by strangers, I realized that sometimes love doesn't return in the way we expect. Sometimes it comes back broken, bruised, and begging for forgiveness. And sometimes that's enough. The days after Mira's death passed like a fever dream, long, hot, and heavy. The hospital became a blur of white walls, murmured condolences, and signatures on endless papers that seemed to erase a life with each stroke of a pen. Lakshmi didn't speak for 2 days. She just sat by the hospital bed long after Mira was gone, her hand still clutching the bedsheet where her daughter's fingers had been. Her eyes were dry, but her silence screamed. I stayed with her, not because I knew what to say, but because I couldn't bear to leave her alone in that hollow of grief. Aaron handled the formalities. He moved like a ghost, his eyes blank, his voice flat. Sometimes I would catch him staring at Mira's wedding ring, which now rested in a small paper envelope, and his expression would crumble for a moment before he hid it again. When we finally took her body back to the village for the cremation, it felt like a cruel circle completing itself. The same road that had brought us to the city now carried us back. Only this time, one of us would not return. The cremation happened near the riverbank at dusk. The sky burned orange, the wind smelled of smoke and sorrow. Lakshmi sat by the fire, chanting prayers through broken sobs. Aaron stood beside me, motionless. The flames reflected in his eyes, and I couldn't tell if they burned with guilt or grief. When it was over, we stood there watching the ashes drift away into the water. Lakshmi picked up a handful of the remaining ash and pressed it to her heart. "She's gone," she whispered. "My child is gone." I reached for her shoulder. "She's free now," I said quietly. "She forgave us before she left." Lakshmi nodded weakly, her face pale. "Forgiveness is easy for the dead," she said. "It's the living who have to bear the weight." Her words cut deep, because I knew she was right. That night, we returned to our houses, 2 old women and 1 broken man walking through the dark village road, our shadows long and fragile under the flickering lanterns. The ruined house looked smaller than I remembered, like it had been shrinking alongside my spirit. Aaron stayed silent as we entered. He put his bag down and sat on the floor, staring at the walls. "I'll stay here with you for some time," he said softly. I wanted to be angry, to tell him he didn't have the right to decide when to come and go, but when I saw the exhaustion on his face, the lines that hadn't been there before, the hollowness in his voice, I couldn't. "Stay," I said simply. For the first time in years, we shared a meal together, rice and curry, simple and plain. It felt awkward at first, but when he reached out and served me a spoonful, my throat tightened. Small gestures hurt the most when you've gone too long without them. Lakshmi joined us the next morning. She looked older, her back bent, her eyes distant. She brought a small pot of flowers for Mira's spirit and placed it between our homes. "She should rest here," she said. "This is where her life ended, so this is where I'll remember her." Aaron helped her set it down. He didn't say much, but his actions spoke louder, carrying her water pots, repairing her leaking roof, quietly leaving food by her door. Sometimes I'd watch him from the porch, wondering if this was his way of seeking redemption, by taking care of the woman who'd once been his wife's mother. And sometimes I wondered if God had brought us all together not for punishment, but for forgiveness. But peace never lasts long. One evening, about 2 weeks after the cremation, a man arrived at the village. He was tall, well-dressed, and looked out of place among the mud houses and dusty roads. He carried a briefcase and wore a grim expression. He came to our door just as the sun was setting. "Mrs. Lakshmi Devi?" he asked. "She lives next door," I said. "What is this about?" He looked at me sharply. I'm from the legal office in the city. I was asked to deliver some documents regarding the late Mrs. Mira Raghav's estate. Estate, the word struck like a stone. Lakshmi came out then, wiping her hands on her sari. What documents? He handed her an envelope. Mrs. Raghav left a will before her death. It was recently processed. A will, Aaron said, stepping forward. But she didn't have much. We lost everything months ago. The man looked at him, then at Lakshmi. That's for you to read. He bowed slightly and left, his shoes clicking against the dry earth. Lakshmi opened the envelope slowly, her hands shaking. Inside were several pages, stamped and signed. She adjusted her glasses and began to read. After a few seconds, her face went pale. "Oh, God," she whispered. "What is it?" I asked. She looked at me, then at Aaron, her lips trembling. She left everything to him. I froze. To my son?" I asked weakly. She nodded, yes, to Aaron Raghav, her husband. Aaron stepped back as if struck. "That's impossible, we separated, she hated me." Lakshmi's voice cracked, maybe she didn't. The silence that followed was suffocating. The only sound was the rustle of papers in her hands and the faint cry of a crow somewhere in the distance. "She wrote something else," Lakshmi said softly, scanning the next page. "A letter addressed to both of you." Her fingers trembled as she read aloud. "To my husband, Aaron, and to my mother's, yes, both of you, I leave behind what little I have left. My money means nothing now, but maybe it can fix what my pride broke. I hurt you all in ways I can never undo. I let ambition blind me to love and resentment blind me to forgiveness. If this letter reaches you, it means I didn't make it. But if there's one thing I wish for, it's that you remember the good in me, not the mistakes. To Aaron, take care of them, both of them. You failed one mother, don't fail the other. Love, Mira." When Lakshmi finished reading, none of us could speak. I felt tears sliding down my face. All the hatred I'd carried for years seemed to dissolve into something heavier, sorrow, maybe, or understanding. The kind that hurts even more because it comes too late. Aaron broke down first. He covered his face with his hands and cried like I'd never seen before. Lakshmi began to weep quietly too, rocking back and forth, whispering her daughter's name. I just sat there, frozen, the letter's words echoing inside me. You failed one mother, don't fail the other. That night, the house was filled with silence again, but it wasn't the same silence as before. It wasn't empty, it was full of ghosts, forgiveness, and unfinished love. Aaron sat beside me by the dim lantern light. "Amma," he said softly, "I don't deserve her forgiveness, or yours." I looked at him for a long time. "Forgiveness isn't about deserving," I said. "It's about freeing yourself. We all did what we thought was right. We all lost because of it." He nodded slowly. "I'll stay here," he said. "With you, I'll rebuild this house. I'll make it a home again." I smiled faintly. "The house is what's broken, Aaron. It's the people inside it. Start there." He reached for my hand and held it, something he hadn't done in years. I didn't pull away. Over the next few days, he kept his word. He repaired the walls, cleaned the roof, painted the old doors. The villagers whispered again, but this time with curiosity instead of pity. "The city man's back," they said. "He's fixing the house for his mother." Lakshmi helped too, bringing food and water, her quiet presence now part of our lives. We'd share meals together, sometimes laughing softly about the smallest things, the kind of laughter that hides tears behind it. But inside, I could feel something shifting, not just in the house, but in my heart. The anger was fading, replaced by a fragile peace. Then one evening, as the sun dipped low, Aaron called me outside. "Amma," he said, pointing to the marigolds Lakshmi had planted between our homes. "They've bloomed." I looked at the bright orange petals swaying in the wind and felt something break inside me, not in pain this time, but in relief. "Maybe she's at peace now," I said. He nodded. "Maybe we all can be." Later that night, after Lakshmi had gone home and the house was quiet, Aaron sat beside me again. "Amma," he said hesitantly, "there's something you should know. About that day, the day I left you in the village." I stiffened, my heart suddenly heavy again. "I didn't plan to abandon you," he said. "I swear I didn't. Mira, she told me she'd come back for you the next week. She said she'd found a better place for you in a home run by a trust. She told me she'd already arranged it. I believed her." My breath caught. When she never mentioned it again, I asked her, he continued. She said you'd refused, that you wanted to stay. I believed her again. I was wrong, Amma, so wrong. I couldn't speak. The truth hit me like a wave, cruel and cleansing at the same time. I didn't know, he whispered. I thought you were safe. I thought you were happy. I looked at him, my son, broken, remorseful, still my child no matter how far he had strayed. I was never angry because you left, I said softly. I was angry because you forgot. He closed his eyes, tears streaming down his face. I'll spend the rest of my life remembering, he whispered. I touched his cheek, my fingers trembling. Then maybe that's enough. Outside, the wind stirred through the trees. Somewhere, a night bird called. Lakshmi's light flickered faintly in her window. I thought of Mira, of her final words, her letter, her forgiveness. I thought of Lakshmi, who had lost her daughter but gained a son. And I thought of myself, a mother who had been abandoned but found her child again in the ruins of a broken house. But life, I knew, was not done with us yet. There were still wounds that would reopen, truths yet to be faced, and one final test of the heart waiting beyond the calm. And deep inside, I felt it coming like the quiet before a storm. The house smelled of smoke and incense for weeks after the cremation. Every morning, Lakshmi lit a small clay lamp by the pot of marigolds, her hands trembling as she whispered prayers for Mira's soul. The flowers never seemed to wilt. They stood stubbornly bright against the gray walls, like her grief, refusing to fade. Aaron threw himself into repairing the house. He mended the fence, repainted the door, even built a new cot for me from old wood he found behind the shed. He said little, but the rhythm of his hammering filled the silence that words could not. Sometimes I caught him staring at Mira's photograph, the one Lakshmi had framed, and his lips would tremble as if he were speaking to her in his mind. Life became a strange pattern of routine and sorrow. We shared meals, spoke softly, and avoided the memories that lingered like ghosts in every corner. But peace built on guilt is fragile. One breath of truth can shatter it. It began one humid evening. The air felt heavy, charged with the scent of rain and something darker. Lakshmi had gone to the temple, leaving Aaron and me alone. I was folding clothes when he said quietly, "Amma, there's something else I never told you." I turned. His face was pale, eyes sunken from sleepless nights. "What is it, Aaron?" He hesitated. About Mira's accident, it wasn't just an accident. My heart skipped. What do you mean? He sank onto the floor, his voice breaking. We fought that night. I'd been drinking. She wanted to leave again, said she couldn't live with me anymore, that everything we touched turned to pain. I begged her to stay. She said she was going to her mother. I followed her in the car. The room went cold. There was rain, he continued. The road was slippery. She was ahead of me on her scooter. I honked, she looked back, and then she lost control. His voice cracked completely. I ran to her, but he buried his face in his hands. "It's my fault, Amma. I killed her." I dropped the sari I was holding. For a long moment, the only sound was the soft hiss of wind outside. "No," I whispered. "No, Aaron, it was an accident." He shook his head violently. If I hadn't chased her, if I'd let her go, she'd still be alive. Tears spilled down my cheeks before I realized I was crying. I wanted to comfort him, to tell him he wasn't a monster, but the words wouldn't come. How do you console your child when his guilt is carved into death itself? Lakshmi returned later that night, soaked from the rain. She looked at us, me frozen, Aaron shattered, and sensed something was wrong. "What happened?" she asked. I tried to speak, but my voice faltered. Aaron stood up slowly. "I told Amma the truth," he said. Lakshmi frowned. "Truth." He met her eyes. "About Mira." For a second, she didn't understand. Then realization dawned, slow, dreadful. "You." Aaron couldn't look at her. "I never meant." Her scream cut through the night like lightning. "You killed my daughter." "Lakshmi, please." I tried to calm her, but she pushed me aside. "You brought him back here, you called him son, and all this time, he took her from me." Aaron fell to his knees. "I'm sorry. I swear on my life I didn't mean to hurt her. I loved her." "Love," she spat. "Love is not what destroys. You ruined her, you ruined us all." The storm outside seemed to mirror the chaos inside. Rain hammered the roof, wind howled through the cracks. Lakshmi collapsed to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. I knelt beside her, holding her trembling hands. Enough, I said through my tears. Please, what's done is done. Don't let more lives burn for the same mistake. She looked up at me, her eyes red. How can you defend him? Because he's my son, I whispered, and I already lost him once. For a moment, the world was still. Then Lakshmi's face crumpled, not from rage but from unbearable sorrow. She turned away and whispered, I can't look at him. Aaron stood there, soaked and broken, watching her walk back into her house without another word. The days after that were worse than any loneliness I'd ever known. Lakshmi stopped visiting. She closed her doors and windows, her lamp burning silently inside like a heart behind bars. Aaron barely spoke, spending his days by the riverbank staring at nothing. I tried to mend the rift between them, but some wounds are too deep for words. Guilt had swallowed him, grief had hardened her, and I was caught between, a mother torn between two children who could not forgive each other. One afternoon, I found a note on Aaron's cot. Amma, don't look for me. I can't stay where every breath reminds me of what I've done. Maybe if I leave, she'll find peace. Maybe you will too. I ran outside, calling his name, but the road was empty. The villagers said they'd seen him walking toward the station before dawn. My heart sank. That night, I sat outside in the rain, waiting like I had once before when he'd driven away and never come back. I whispered to the wind, don't take him again, please. But the night gave no answer. 2 weeks passed, no word. Lakshmi grew quieter, her anger replaced by a fragile emptiness. Sometimes I saw her standing by the marigolds, whispering to the air. Once she said softly, he didn't mean it, did he? I didn't answer. Then one morning, a letter arrived, addressed to both of us. The handwriting was Aaron's. My hands trembled as I opened it. Amma, Ma, that's what I called her in my heart, though I never said it. I am sorry. I went to the city and turned myself in. I couldn't live pretending anymore. The police said it was an accident, but I told them the truth, that I chased her, that I caused it. They said I'd have to serve time, maybe not long, but enough to pay for what I've done. Don't cry for me. I'm not running this time. I just want you both to forgive yourselves. You loved us, and we forgot that love until it was too late. Take care of each other. If I ever come back, I want to see the house rebuilt, not just the walls, but the people in it. Your son, Aaron. I read it aloud to Lakshmi. When I finished, neither of us spoke. She reached for the letter and pressed it to her chest. He called me Ma, she whispered. He never did before. And just like that, something inside her broke. But softly, this time, like a lock giving way. The seasons changed. Months passed. Aaron wrote occasionally from prison, short letters filled with remorse and a strange peace. He said he was teaching other inmates to read, fixing broken furniture, trying to build something again. Lakshmi and I grew close in ways I never imagined. We tended the garden together, cooked simple meals, shared memories of our children, one gone, one paying for her loss. One evening, as we sat watching the sunset, Lakshmi said, "You know, fate brought us here not to suffer, but to see." To see what? I asked. That love and punishment are sometimes the same thing, she said. We both lost, but we found each other. Maybe that's what Mira wanted. I smiled faintly, and Aaron? He's doing what we couldn't, facing his sins, she replied. That's courage. Her words lingered long after the light faded. The day Aaron returned, the village was quiet. He came walking down the dirt road with a small bag and tired eyes. His hair had turned gray at the edges, but when he saw me standing by the gate, he smiled, the same shy smile from his childhood. Amma, he said softly. I ran to him, my tears blinding me. I held his face in my hands, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "You came home." Lakshmi stood a few steps behind me, watching. For a moment, he hesitated, then walked to her and knelt. Ma, he said, his voice trembling, I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to thank you for not hatting me. Lakshmi's eyes filled with tears. She touched his head gently. A mother's heart doesn't know hate, she said, only loss. He bowed his head against her knees, and she placed her trembling hands on his shoulders. For the first time, the three of us stood together, not as enemies bound by tragedy, but as survivors of it. That night, the house glowed with soft light. The repaired roof didn't leak anymore. The marigolds outside swayed in the wind. We ate together in silence, and for once, the silence was peaceful. After dinner, I found Aaron sitting by the porch, staring at the stars. I sat beside him. "Do you still blame yourself?" I asked. He shook his head slowly. "I think I've learned that forgiveness isn't about forgetting what we did. It's about remembering it differently, with understanding instead of shame." I smiled faintly. "You sound like your father." He looked at me, tears glistening in his eyes. "I sound like you, Amma." I didn't reply. I just took his hand, and together we watched the night settle around us, quiet, vast, forgiving. But even peace has an edge. A few weeks later, Lakshmi fell ill. Her body had grown frail, worn down by grief and age. We took her to the hospital in the nearby town, but she smiled weakly and said, "No hospitals. I'm tired of white walls." She wanted to stay home. So we brought her back, laid her on the cot by the window where she could see the marigolds. One evening, she called me and Aaron to her side. "Promise me something," she said. "When I'm gone, don't separate our homes again. Keep the lamp burning between them, for her, for me, for all of us." Tears streamed down my face. "You're not going anywhere," I said. She smiled. "We all go somewhere, child, just not alone." That night she passed quietly, her hand in mine, her last breath a whisper of peace. We buried her beside the marigolds. Aaron carved her name on a wooden plank and placed it in the soil. For days, the air around the house felt sacred, heavy with memories, yet strangely calm. Sometimes, when the wind blows through the trees, I hear her voice, soft, forgiving, eternal. We kept our promise. The two houses became one. The lamp burns every night between them, casting its golden light over the marigolds that never die. And though the world calls this a story of betrayal, I know better. It's a story of love, the kind that survives death, guilt, and time. Because in the end, even ruined houses can be rebuilt. And sometimes, so can hearts. It has been a year since Lakshmi left us. Yet every morning, I still hear her voice in the wind, soft, humming, like she's sweeping the yard between our houses again. The marigolds she planted never stopped blooming. They grow wild now, spilling over the fence, filling the air with that stubborn orange glow that refuses to fade. Sometimes I talk to them as if they can carry my words to her. "He's doing well, Lakshmi," I tell her. "Your boy, my boy, he's healing. Slowly." Aaron has changed. The lines on his face are deeper, but his eyes are calmer now. He doesn't look away when people greet him in the village. He started helping the children from the school down the road, teaching them math, fixing their shoes, building kites. The villagers no longer whisper about the man who abandoned his mother. Now they call him teacher. And me, I spend my days quietly, tending to the garden, cooking, watching the road that once brought me pain. The ruined house is no longer ruined. Aaron rebuilt it, brick by brick, just as he rebuilt himself. The walls gleam with whitewash, the roof doesn't leak, and the old window by my bed now opens to the fields where the sun rises every morning. But no matter how beautiful it looks, I still call it the house of forgiveness, because that's what it became, not a place of exile, but of return. Sometimes, when dusk settles and the crickets start singing, Aaron and I sit outside under the neem tree, the same spot where I once cried, waiting for him to come back. He brews tea for us now, just the way I used to make it for him when he was little, too much sugar, too little milk. We don't talk much during those evenings. Words aren't needed anymore. There's something sacred about silence when it's shared by two hearts that have already said everything. Still, there are moments when the past slips in like an uninvited guest. One night he said quietly, "Amma, do you think she sees us?" He didn't have to say her name. We both knew who he meant. I looked up at the stars, countless little fires flickering in the sky, each one perhaps holding a soul. "Of course she does," I said softly. "That's why the marigolds bloom even when it doesn't rain." He smiled faintly, but there were tears in his eyes. "I wish I could tell her that I finally understood her," he said. "You already did," I replied. "You understood her the moment you forgave yourself." He nodded slowly, as if the words were sinking into him like rain into dry earth. Then he said something that broke me a little inside, and yet healed me too. "Amma," he whispered, "you never stopped loving me, even when I didn't deserve it." I took his hand and held it tightly. "That's what being a mother means, my son. We love you before you're born, and we love you after you're gone. Everything in between is just waiting." He looked at me, his eyes wet, and for a moment I saw my little boy again, the one who used to hide behind me during thunderstorms, who used to whisper, "Don't let go, Amma." And I realized I never truly had, not even when he left me by that ruined house. There are days when I still walk to the riverbank where we scattered Mira's ashes. The water has changed, calmer now, clearer. I sit on the rocks and watch the current flow, thinking of how time washes away even the deepest scars. I've learned that forgiveness isn't something you give once. It's something you give every day, to yourself, to others, to life. Because pain doesn't disappear when you forgive, it just becomes easier to carry. Sometimes I imagine Mira standing across the river, smiling, not as the woman who hurt me, but as the girl she must have been before life hardened her. I like to think she forgave me too, for judging her, for hating her, for not seeing her pain when it was right in front of me. I wish I could tell her that I understand now, that she was just a woman trying to protect her place in the world, afraid to lose love the way her mother did. We were all just frightened people pretending to be strong. One evening, as the sky turned purple and gold, Aaron brought home a young woman from the village. She was shy, her sari simple, her eyes full of warmth. "Amma," he said, "this is Kavitha. She teaches at the school with me." I smiled, though something inside me trembled. "You've made a friend," I said, trying to sound light. He hesitated, then said quietly, "More than a friend." My heart clenched, but I nodded. "She seems kind," I said. Kavitha smiled politely and touched my feet. "I've heard so much about you," she said softly. I looked into her eyes, gentle, sincere, and for the first time in years I felt no fear, only peace. "You're welcome here," I said. That night, after she left, Aaron sat beside me uncertain. "Do you think it's wrong to love again?" he asked. "No," I said, "it's wrong not to." He looked down. "I'm scared." "So was I," I whispered. "When I became a mother, when I lost your father, when I lost you. But I learned that love doesn't come to make us safe, Aaron. It comes to make us whole." He took a deep breath and nodded. And in that moment, I knew he was ready to live again, truly live. Months passed. The village slowly began to change. The children who once avoided me now came running to my door every morning, bringing flowers and gossip. Aaron fixed the broken benches in the temple courtyard. Kavitha joined him often, her laughter echoing through the fields. Even the villagers who used to whisper cruel things about us now stopped to talk, their tones softened. Maybe they saw that pain can be mended, that forgiveness can rebuild even what betrayal destroyed. And sometimes, when the wind blew gently through the marigolds, I could almost hear Lakshmi laughing, the low, warm laugh of a woman who had finally found rest. But fate, I have learned, never gives without taking something back. That winter, my health began to fade. It started with tiredness, just a little at first, then more. My hands grew weaker, my steps slower. Aaron noticed before I did. "Amma," he said one morning, "you're pale. Let me take you to the doctor." I smiled. "I've lived long enough, my child. Let the doctor save someone who still has years to chase." He frowned. "Don't say that." "I'm not afraid," I said softly. "I've made peace with everything, even the pain." He didn't answer, but that night I heard him crying outside, his sobs muffled in the dark. I didn't go to him. Sometimes, a mother must let her child grieve before she can comfort him. The days grew shorter, the nights colder. I began spending more time in bed, watching the sunlight crawl across the floor like a slow-moving memory. One evening, as the lamp between our houses flickered, I called Aaron to my side. "Promise me something," I said. He took my hand. "Anything, Amma. When I'm gone, keep the house open. Don't lock it up like people do with graves. Let others come. Let them eat, rest, talk. Make this place a shelter for anyone who's been left behind." He shook his head, tears glistening in his eyes. "Don't talk like that." "I have to," I said gently. "Because life doesn't wait for our words. It just keeps moving, whether we're ready or not." He gripped my hand tighter. "I can't lose you again." I smiled weakly. "You won't. You'll just see me differently. In the lamp, in the marigolds, in every sunrise that touches this house, I'll still be here." He bent his head to my hand, crying quietly. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. "No one deserves love," I said. "That's why it's so beautiful." That night I dreamed of the sea, endless and calm. Lakshmi was there, standing on the shore, her hair dancing in the wind. Mira stood beside her, holding a small boy's hand. Aaron's child, perhaps from another life. They smiled at me. I walked toward them, feeling the sand warm beneath my feet, the sky turning gold above us. When I woke, the lamp was still burning. Dawn was breaking outside, soft pink light spilling into the room. The air smelled of marigolds. Aaron was asleep by my bedside, his hand still holding mine. I watched him for a long moment, memorizing every line of his face, every breath he took. And then, with the gentlest sigh, I closed my eyes. They tell me he built a small shrine after I was gone, not a temple, not a grave, but a simple open shelter beside the house. A place for travelers to rest, for the hungry to eat, for the lonely to sit in peace. He called it Amma's light. Every evening, he lights a lamp there, the same one that once burned between our homes, and tells anyone who visits our story. He tells them about betrayal, forgiveness, and the way love can survive even when everything else is gone. He tells them about a mother who was left in a ruined house and a son who came back to rebuild it, not because she asked him to, but because he couldn't live without her love. Sometimes travelers weep when they hear it. Sometimes they smile, and when they leave, they take a little of that light with them. If love has taught me anything, it's this. You can abandon people, but you can never escape what they gave you. And you can rebuild a house, a life, even a heart, but you can never rebuild time. So love while you can, apologize while the road is still open. Forgive before silence becomes the only answer left. Because one day, the people we love will become stories. And the only question that matters is, what kind of story will we leave behind?